Hello and welcome to the sixth in our series of brief presentations to help students writing their essay for Logos 1. And this one is about writing your conclusion paragraph. We acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of the land on which our university sits. So, for a conclusion paragraph, there are three quite common elements which are included. Just as in the end of your introduction paragraph, you included a thesis statement, so at the beginning of the conclusion paragraph, it's a very common thing to do, to go back to that thesis statement, to review it, because the whole purpose of the essay was to put forward and support the point of view contained there. Then the middle part of the conclusion paragraph typically reviews the main arguments which were used to support that position that you put forward. And often the last couple of sentences look at the implications of that position that you've supported. So what? And implications might be in relation to the way we live today, or a particular context, or how we do philosophy, how we study, how we practice our principles, etc. So once again, as in previous presentations, I'm referring to this example essay. You'll find it on Blackboard. And as before, I'm just going to remind you of the importance of not plagiarizing that essay, and be particularly careful if you happen to have chosen the same topic, that you don't lift ideas or phrases from that one. But it's a good example of essay writing. So, as I said, these are the common elements, and we find all of them in this example. So, the first sentence here goes back to the main point of the essay, the thesis statement. What has this essay done is the key point here. To open up, this student used the word concluding, but very commonly we see in conclusion or to conclude, followed by a comma. As I've mentioned before, it's acceptable to use the first person, I, in your writing in philosophy. That was not used in the example we saw, but it would be perfectly possible to say, in conclusion, I have argued that, or I have shown that. Or, particularly if you've been using a more impersonal style throughout the rest of the essay, you'll probably want to continue with that. And it has been argued, it has been shown that, is the impersonal way of doing the same thing. Notice, by the way, the grammar here is what we call present perfect tense. I have done. It has been done. And it's the typical tense we use to make announcements. And that's why it's commonly found at the beginning of the conclusion. So into the middle part of this paragraph, and we get the review of the main arguments. So here is a very brief summary, just pointing out the arguments from this, that, and the other were extracted and utilized to support the position which the student had decided to support. Okay, that's quite a long sentence, and if you prefer, you could make it into 2 or 3 shorter ones. I've said on many occasions in these talks, it's often a good strategy to stop and start again. It solves a lot of difficulties in writing. And as I mentioned before, if you're continuing to write in the first person, you could be saying, I used, I drew on, I argued that, I pointed out that, I showed that. Or in the impersonal voice, the same thing can be done with the same verbs. XXX, whatever that was used or were used to support. It was argued, it was pointed out, it was shown that. Notice, by the way, we've now switched to the past tense when we're giving the detail of what we did in the essay. And then the last, as I said, typically 2 or 3 sentences of the paragraph broaden out the argument to say what the implications are, asking yourself the question, so what? And applying it to life today or a suitable, relevant context. This was the example. The student tends to write longish sentences, so they've written 2. It would be possible to break these down into shorter ones too. Although you're looking at implications, you're still trying to write in a kind of cool and objective way and not becoming emotional. And notice here, because we're looking at implications for the present day, we've switched to the present tense in all of those verbs. So it was interesting that we started off in the present perfect. It has been argued. And then we moved to the past tense to give the details. This theory was used. It was shown. And now we're looking at the present, so we've moved to the present tense. So, the next step, if you have actually written your complete draft, one possibility, if there's time, could be to book an appointment. Can be online, to speak to someone like me. And you'll find, I've put the address at the top there. You'll find this in the library if you do a search for study skills or study skills support or something like that. The library in any case has a number of resources that are useful, in particular plenty on referencing, which you'll need to check. And they also have this very useful function. It pops up when you open up the library website called Ask It. And if you click on the archive, you can then see a searchable collection of questions and answers. And I've just put in the word philosophy into the box, and you can see that it's come up with 17 questions and answers, which on the whole have been put there by students like you in the past. A lot of them are about referencing. And there's one more of these short presentations to go, which is about editing your work, particularly looking at cutting the word limit, dealing with sentence or paragraph issues, and also recognizing the opportunity to change the style if necessary. Okay, and I've put the link to our feedback. It would be very nice if you're able to go to that address once only for the series and give us some feedback on these presentations. Bye now.